There was once a point in time when the Dallas Cowboys were considered the best team in the NFL, the standard for everyone to follow. Now that idea seems like a distant memory. The last time the franchise made the NFC Championship game was all the way back in 1995, nearly 30 years ago, 29 to be exact, when they defeated the Green Bay Packers to advance to and win Super Bowl 30. To put it in perspective, the last time Dallas went to the NFC Championship game, the Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars were both playing in their first seasons. The Houston Texans did not exist yet. The most valuable team in all sports, with an estimated value of $9 billion, who plays in one of the nicest stadiums in the world, AT&T Stadium. Should they be remembered more for being a dynasty in the 90s or being a disappointment in more recent years? So, what went wrong for this to happen? Why has Dallas been so disappointing for so long, and will it continue? This is the story of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's start with a history lesson. The Cowboys joined the league in 1960 and struggled at first. They slowly improved over time and would eventually reach their first Super Bowl. Super Bowl V against the Baltimore, now Indianapolis, Colts. They would lose that game, but rebound with a win in Super Bowl VI, led by franchise legend Roger Staubach against the Miami Dolphins. Following a loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Super Bowl X, they would win another Super Bowl, this time against the Denver Broncos, with a 27-10 win in New Orleans. After another loss to Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl, the Cowboys were famously nicknamed America's team. Dallas would get close to returning to the Super Bowl, but failed after several losses, one of them to their rivals, the San Francisco 49ers. Joe Montana would lead the 49ers to victory on what would be the start of the 49ers dynasty. The Cowboys would not reach the Super Bowl during the 80s, and would slowly decline over time. After a 3-13 record in 1988, things were not looking good in Dallas. However, they could not have predicted what would happen next. Jerry Jones would buy the Cowboys for $150 million in 1989. Jones quickly fired head coach Tom Landry, the only head coach in Cowboys history at the time, and replaced him with University of Miami head coach Jimmy Johnson. Jones and Johnson were teammates at the University of Arkansas. Then they would begin to rebuild America's team. Johnson was reunited with Miami wide receiver Michael Irvin. With the first pick in the draft, Dallas would add UCLA quarterback Troy Aikman. They would trade running back Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings for 5 players and 8 draft picks. This trade helped them rebuild the team after a 1-15 1989 season. They would keep getting better, adding players like running back Emmitt Smith and others to the team. After returning to the top of the league with a 13-3 record in 1992, they would have to face their rivals, the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco, to return to the Super Bowl. After a 30-20 victory, they would go on to defeat the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 27 by a score of 52-17. Then they would do what only a few great teams have been able to, winning back-to-back championships. After a win against, you guessed it, the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, they would return to the Super Bowl to defeat the Buffalo Bills once again by a score of 38-21 in Super Bowl 28. What could possibly go wrong now? Now here is the first obvious mistake. Dallas looked to be ready to win 3 straight Super Bowls, but after a dramatic conclusion to the partnership of Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson, that became increasingly unlikely. So why did they separate after 2 straight Super Bowl victories? The issues were largely due to the fact they simply didn't work well together in Dallas, as obvious as it may sound. As time went on, despite Jones already having the title of general manager, along with being the owner, he wanted more control over the team. Johnson did not want to give more power to Jones. In December 1993, Johnson expressed interest in the head coaching job of the new expansion team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jones then told the media that he would decide Johnson's future with the team. Following a Super Bowl victory against Buffalo, Johnson was frustrated by the comments made by Jones, saying any coach could have won the Super Bowl with the Cowboys. Then in March 1994, the two separated. Johnson never won another Super Bowl. People still wonder to this day what would have happened if Johnson stayed in Dallas. Could things have gone differently? Would they have won 3 in a row? Maybe even won 4 or 5 Super Bowls? Instead, we will never know. At first, it didn't seem to matter much. Jones hired another former Arkansas player and former Oklahoma head coach Barry Switzer. Switzer and the Cowboys would return to the NFC Championship game to face who else? The San Francisco 49ers. They lost that game 38-28, but this time they wouldn't collapse after the game, at least not yet. Which brings us to the 1995 season, where in the NFC Championship game, the most recent one for the franchise, they defeated Green Bay to advance to the Super Bowl where they met Pittsburgh once again. This time, they did win, 27-17, the Cowboys' 5th Super Bowl victory. After this game, however, is when things begin to fall apart. The following season, they would be eliminated in the divisional round by the Carolina Panthers. Then in the 1997 season, they would respond with a 6-10 record. Switzer resigned, and it was the end of the dynasty. Former Steelers offensive coordinator Chan Gailey replaced Switzer. He led the team to 2 wildcard losses. Defensive coordinator Dave Campo would take over for the 2000 season, and it was a disaster from the beginning. Cornerback Deion Sanders was released by the team, and in the first game of the season, quarterback Troy Aikman suffered a career-ending concussion. They finished the year with a 5-11 record. They would finish the next season 5-11 as well. Then after yet another 5-11 season in 2002, Campo was fired at the end of the season. At this point, Aikman, Irvin, and Smith were no longer with the team. The Cowboys would then change things when they brought in Super Bowl winning coach Bill Parcells to lead them into the future. In his first 3 seasons, Parcells achieved no better than a wildcard loss. They had several quarterbacks under Parcells, including Quincy Carter, Vinny Testaverde, and Drew Bledsoe. In 2006, they would finally decide on one. In a Week 7 loss to the New York Giants, Tony Romo replaced Bledsoe, and following the loss, would go on to win 5 out of his first 6 games. Things were looking good for Dallas, as they traveled to Seattle for a playoff game. In one of the most heartbreaking defeats imaginable, the Cowboys were able to get themselves in field goal range with little time remaining, down 21-20. When Romo received the snap, he fumbled the ball and was forced to try to score. He was tackled at the 2-yard line, and Dallas was defeated.
19-yard field goal attempt. Oh, it is fumbled by Romo, and then Romo's going to run to the end zone, and he's going to get tackled by Jordan Babineau.
After that game, Parcells would retire and was replaced by Wade Phillips. In 2007, they then looked to finally return to the Super Bowl, and if there's any year to do it, it was this one. Out of their first 13 games, they won 12 of them. The only loss was against the Patriots, who went undefeated in the regular season that year. With the number 1 seed in the NFC, they had a first-round bye and home field advantage. All they had to do was beat the New York Giants at home in the divisional round. Trailing 21-17, the Cowboys got the ball with 1 minute 50 seconds left in the game at the New York 48-yard line. With 31 seconds remaining, they were at the Giants' 22-yard line and needed a touchdown. With 21 seconds remaining, on a 3rd and 11, Romo threw the ball deep into the end zone, just missing wide receiver Patrick Creighton. There appeared to be a miscommunication, and now they had a 4th and 11 with the season on the line. Romo threw the ball into the end zone and was intercepted. The Cowboys' season was over, and the Giants would go on to win the Super Bowl. After a promising 3-0 start, Dallas would fail to make the playoffs in 2008, largely due to injuries. Then in 2009, they would finally win their first playoff game with a win against their rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles. They would fail to advance past the divisional round after a 34-3 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. After a 1-7 start in 2010, Phillips was fired and replaced by offensive coordinator Jason Garrett. They finished the season with a 6-10 record. The following year, a Week 17 loss to the Giants would prevent them from returning to the playoffs. In the 2012 season, they were once again just 1 win away from the playoffs. All they had to do was defeat Washington, but instead they lost 28-18. It would be another 8-8 season for Dallas. Believe it or not, the Cowboys once again found themselves needing one more win to get into the playoffs. However, with Romo out for Week 17, Philadelphia won the game, and the Cowboys ended the season with, you guessed it, an 8-8 record. In 2014, they finally produced a winning season, going 12-4 and becoming NFC East champions once again. In the wildcard round, Dallas would face the Detroit Lions. At halftime, they trailed 17-7, and at one point in the game they trailed 20-7, but the Cowboys would make a comeback. Late in the game, Dallas took a 24-20 lead, but the Lions got the ball with 2 minutes 30 seconds remaining. Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford would then fumble the ball, but after defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence failed to recover the ball, the Lions were able to avoid a disaster. Lawrence would make sure Dallas won the game, after he sacked Stafford on 4th down. The sack led to a fumble, which Lawrence then recovered this time to win the game. The Cowboys would now meet the Packers in Green Bay. After taking a 14-7 lead at halftime, they would have to face a controversial ending, as their season ended on an overturned catch from Des Bryant. Green Bay beat Dallas 26-21. 2015 would be a disappointing year for Dallas. After starting 2-0, they would go on a 7-game losing streak, finishing the season with a 4-12 record. In 2016, Tony Romo suffered an injury in the preseason, and rookie Dak Prescott became the starter. At first, Romo was expected to be out 6 to 8 weeks, but following a Week 1 loss to the Giants, the Prescott-led Cowboys would win 11 straight games. Prescott would start the rest of the season. Him and another rookie, running back Ezekiel Elliott, would earn a 13-3 record. However, once again, Dallas could not reach the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers defeated them on a last-second Mason Crosby field goal to win 34-31. The Cowboys could not get back to that level of success right away. They failed to make the playoffs with a 9-7 record in the 2017 season. As they began the 2018 season, Tony Romo, Des Bryant, and tight end Jason Witten were no longer with the team. The Cowboys began this new era with a 10-6 record and a NFC East championship. They won a playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks in the wildcard round, 24-22, before losing to the Los Angeles Rams 30-22. After missing the playoffs again in 2019 with an 8-8 record, they fired head coach Jason Garrett. The team hired Mike McCarthy, who won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. Unfortunately, Prescott suffered an ankle injury that ended his season, and the Cowboys finished 2020 with a 6-10 record. In 2021, with Prescott back, they had a record of 12-5 in another NFC East championship. They would fail to advance past the wildcard round after a loss against the 49ers, where they were unable to snap the ball before time ran out in San Francisco territory. The 49ers would once again end the Cowboys season after a playoff win against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. However, the 49ers would win again against Dallas to end their season in the divisional round, with a final score of 19-12. This brings us to this past season, where the Cowboys finally seemed ready to compete for the Super Bowl. Prescott would lead the Cowboys to a 12-5 record and a NFC East championship. Dallas would have a home game to start the playoffs, against their rivals, the Green Bay Packers. The game was a disaster from the beginning. The Packers scored on their first drive, the first drive of the game, and would go on to take a 27-7 lead at halftime. The Packers never trailed, winning 48-32 and surprising everyone in the NFL. In a game everyone expected the Cowboys to win, they once again failed to advance. So, that is the history of the Dallas Cowboys. Should they be remembered more for being a dynasty in the 90s or a disappointment more recently? At this point, the Cowboys and their fans just keep waiting and hoping that eventually they will win the Super Bowl again. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.